No Q&A this week because no one asked any questions. So I'm just going to say something that's been on my mind for a few days now. Now, because I try to stay well versed in the powerlifting, strongman, and to a lesser extent the weightlifting community, I follow a lot of websites, I read a lot of different things, and one of the things that I've read a lot recently is a lot of people seem to be trying to emulate elite lifters, elite athletes in general. So I'll give a few examples and then I'll talk about why that's not the best way to do things, perhaps for everyone. So the first example is going to be, if you've ever seen Derek Poundstone deadlift, especially at World's Strongest Man, for high reps, he will rest the bar on his knees. And that's a pretty extreme example, but people will see that and think that's okay for them to do. And it's not. Now, Derek Poundstone is far stronger than you or I will probably ever be. And he knows exactly what the risks are of his sport and what he's doing. So he has chosen to do that, to get more reps and to complete the lift and to make it to finals and to, be very close to being the strongest man in the world back in 2008. Still, very, very close. Anyway, extreme example. However, there are people that see that, think that's okay for them to start doing, and they start doing that. A few years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago, I probably would have been someone like that had I seen that on YouTube. Another example, and probably a little more relevant, let's talk about how John North squats. So John North, very narrow stance, and his knees tend to come in a little bit when he gets to a high intensity. So people see that, and I'll see people make comments such as, look at that stance, or that stance, or Myron that stance, something like that. So you also have to understand that, again, John North is an elite athlete training to make the Olympics. So John North has committed his life to doing so, and you're probably not at the same level as John North, and you may never be at that level. I'm not saying don't aspire to do that, but again, so that's a pretty relevant example. A third, maybe less crazy example, let's say, is how Brad Gillingham deadlifts double overhand. He's deadlifted over 800 pounds, I think. The last time I checked, it was 85 times in competition, but now it's probably closer to 100, because I haven't checked in maybe a year and a half, and he deadlifts over 800 a lot. So, but he's been deadlifting double overhand for years, and people will see that and they'll go, man, maybe I should deadlift double overhand. Chris deadlifts double overhand, and he's pulling over 700 pounds doing that. However, that might not be what works best for you. Don't just see that, and the next time you're doing a max effort deadlift, decide to double overhand. Maybe do something a little more reasonable, like work up to your max effort set, then do a couple back off sets and experiment with a hook grip. Experiment with double overhand. So my point is, you see an elite athlete, you see what they're doing, and you read maybe why they're doing that. Don't just jump right in. Do some research, understand why they're doing what they're doing, understand how long they've been doing it for, and respect the fact that they're that good. Many of us, myself included, may never become elite athletes. I'm not saying don't aspire to be, but it may never happen. So I'm not going to look at the way that Mike Teixeira trains and emulate my training after that. Now, he's got his method of training, and there are people that train that way. However, me deadlifting 3 times a week, 2 to 3 times a week, like Mike Teixeira does sometimes, and at high intensities, that's not going to work for me, especially since I'm transitioning into strongman. But that's definitely not going to work for my recovery. That's not going to work for how I've been training for as long as I've been training. Mike Teixeira's been competing, over 10 years? I know he's been powerlifting for 13, 14 years, maybe even 15. He's been powerlifting for a long time. So again, elite powerlifter, elite athlete. I'm not going to model my training exactly after him just because he deadlifts often at a high intensity. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So, yes, it's good that there are a lot of videos out there on YouTube, and there's a huge pool of information for you to pull from. However, you need to understand that anything that you jump right into, you could end up hurting yourself in the short term or hurting yourself in the long term. When I first heard about Kelly Starrett's his recommendation to squat with a more forward, toes forward, closer angle, I started doing that. I hurt my knees. John Fung, who I did a squat analysis for him the other day. He did the same thing. So again, if you're going to make a transition, if you're going to change the way that you do something, you need to do it slowly. Dog just barked, good girl. So if you want to do, double overhand hook grip, start incorporating it slowly. You want to bring your squat stance in, you want to have a closer stance like John North has, do it slowly. Gain the mobility to do so. And if you want to make it to World's Strongest Man, well, good luck. Alright guys, talk to you in a little bit.